What's good, YouTube? It's Butter in this joint, man. Today, y'all, I'm back with another reaction, man. Today, we got Related Through Money inside Detroit SKUDD-ZONE. Now, y'all, this is T Grizzly Hub. But, yeah, man, if you're new to the channel, make sure you comment, like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, man. Y'all been going crazy. And we got, like, 72K on the other channel, bro. That's crazy. But what else I gonna say, man? Yeah, let me know what kind of content y'all want to see next. This is one of the recommendations I got, bro. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm doing like the recommendations. So if you said something, I'm getting to it. I swear, I'm just like, one at a time.
April 2015, federal and state authorities in Detroit, Michigan, rounded up 5 members of a gang called Related Through Money, or RTM, on charges of racketeering, murder, and robbery.
Oh, shoot.
The defendants were all young men in their 20s, tied together through not just their neighborhood, but a shared experience of growing up in one of America's roughest cities. The indictment and underlying investigation was replete.
Dang. He looked to the side. That was his final moment, bro.
The cities.
It's over.
The indictment and underlying investigation was replete with shocking crimes and havoc. From the young boy who accidentally killed his 11-year-old best friend with his dad's pistol, to the teen who was gunned down by people he had once trusted, to the 74-year-old man killed during a robbery on his own driveway. But the case was hardly a blip on anyone's radar and barely broke through the local media circuit. This was Detroit, after all, a city where the homicide rate was often close to touching 1 per day on average, and where gangs sprung up faster than the cops could take them down.
1 hat per day, bro? Y'all, 365? That is crazy, bro.
And this particular group, RTM, hardly carried the national name recognition of a gang like the Bloods, Crips, Mexican Mafia, Latin Kings, or Aryan Brotherhood, for instance. Most locals probably skimmed an article on their phones and went about their day.
He said, what you know about Related Through Money? I don't know nothing. I just used to see him walk to the Coney.
Unaware that through a quirk of fate, the name Related Through Money would soon be heard across every corner of America.
Now they want to put him on the screen.
And it was all thanks to one man whose rags to riches story is one of the most unlikely of its kind in recent memory.
Yeah, he got lucky for sure. He blessed.
If you stopped time on November 6th, 2016, and took a look at the life of Terry Sanchez Wallace Jr., you'd be looking back on 2 decades filled with hardship, trauma, tragedy, squandered opportunity, and incarceration. By his 22nd birthday, Terry Wallace had lost close family members to violence that continues to plague Detroit. His mother, brother, and several friends to prison, and he'd blown what had appeared to be his best chance to escape poverty by trading in college textbooks and dorm living for the harsh day-to-day life of a state prison cell block. But the thing is, when it came to shaping Wallace's future, none of these horrible experiences mattered. That's because on the very next day, November 7th, 2016, Terry Sanchez Wallace Jr. released the song First Day Out, and became the first rap artist that millions know today as T Grizzley. The single went viral, catapulting Wallace into fame and fortune.
I was just at the function on Halloween. It didn't even get played, bro. Now I think about it, I'm mad I ain't hear this on Halloween, bro.
Faster than a first-round NFL draft pick, and changing the lives.
Wait, what?
Wallace into fame and fortune faster than a first-round NFL draft pick, and changing the lives of Wallace and his family forever. Within 10 weeks, he'd gone from being barely more than a kid with long-shot aspirations to signing a lucrative deal with the
whole time though. T Grizzly back though. Remember that Rapumentary we did with his auntie? If you was on the other channel, bro. If you want to go check the other channel out, Butter Reborn, and go watch that, he did that.
Rap industry powerhouse 300 Entertainment. He would go on to record hit singles, multi-platinum albums, and use his charisma to amass an equal, if not greater, fortune through gaming on Twitch streams. And as even casual fans of his music should know, he has not lost sight of just how fortunate he is. But if you listen carefully to T. Grizzley's music, you'll hear him drop more than a few hints at just how closely he came to derailing his own life in those first 22 years. Starting with his very first big song, T. Grizzley decided to pack his music with references to real life, including that April 2015 indictment that placed him and many of his childhood peers on divergent paths. Sometimes these references are blatant. Other times you really have to know what to look for. But put together, they paint a picture of a young man who faced two possible courses in life, one leading to wealth and fame, the other leading to something much darker. This is the story of Related Through Money, and the despair of a place ironically known as Joy Road. Today's episode centers on a 1 square mile section of northwest Detroit, almost a perfect box between the Southfield Freeway to the east, Greenfield Road to the west,
Joy Road, but the money long is 6 Mile. How long is 6 Mile?
Plymouth Road to the north, and most significantly, Joy Road to the south. It is a section of town that has been referred to by locals for decades as the SKUDD-ZONE, or the SKUDD-ZONE. And it is here that Terry Sanchez Wallace Jr. and his brother, Marcellus Wallace, aka Baby Grizzly, and their peers in this tale all come from. Years later, their mother would state in an online interview that SKUD refers to a slang term for marijuana.
We used to call, actually, weed SKUDs. You know, I hear, you know, they made this whole name out of SKUDD-ZONE. Yeah.
But a defense lawyer named Jeffrey Edison once remarked that the name SKUDD-ZONE fits this part of Detroit for a more jarring reason. Quote, "That area looks like it's been devastated by SKUD missiles."
Oh, shoot, he dissing.
In Detroit, a 5-year study found that from 2011 to 2015, more than half the residents lived in what's called concentrated poverty.
Dang.
Basically a term for when there's almost no money in the local economy. Shops would open, last less than a year, and shut down.
God,
The murder rate in Detroit frequently placed it near the top of America's 10 most violent cities. In the SKUD-ZONE, nearly every residential block has at least one abandoned home. The local high school, Cody High, often battled a graduation rate around 50%, basically meaning that any given student was just as likely to drop out as they were to graduate.
Dang.
And from the looks of this news report, it was more poorly maintained than many prisons.
Bro, Detroit is really the trenches, bro. Oh my God.
It's kind of really hard to focus on the teacher and pay attention when I'm trying to get knocked out by a ceiling tile every 5 minutes.
We should not be sitting in school and have to like hold our books on top of our head so a ceiling won't fall. Like, you can literally hear the ceilings cracking.
It was
That's
against
crazy.
this backdrop that in 2011, a group of teen boys from the area formed RTM as a union of several subsidiary gangs, each of whom brought a CEO to the table from a respective subgroup.
Hold up.
Gangs. Each of whom brought
Many gangs in Detroit refer to their leaders as CEO. Okay.
a CEO to the table from a respective subgroup. When RTM was indicted in 2015,
Related Through Money, criminal street gang, murder, robbery, assault, illegal firearm possession, home invasion, carjacking, financial scams, and other offenses.
the feds did make some passing references to drug sales and that kind of activity, but focused much more heavily on a more disturbing pattern. Members of RTM were pulling off robberies left and right with efficiency,
Dang, the feds
targeting
was
not just
watching.
individuals, but stores with high-value items. In fact, a particularly dangerous strategy was for RTM members to travel to faraway jewelry stores, often by crossing state lines, walk in carrying a mallet or a sledgehammer, and simply smashing cases, grabbing what they could, and running out like hell to a waiting getaway car. Despite this simplicity, the gang was able to pull off Rolex robberies in this fashion time and time again, not seeming to care much about the potential for being caught by surveillance cameras or
They was
employee
jugging.
resistance. They simply weren't afraid to take what they wanted. RTM also maintained beefs with gangs whose territories neighbored the SKUDD-ZONE and beyond.
Oh, shoot.
The indictment contained a laundry list of rivals to RTM, like the TMCNE, Too Much Case Never End, Young Paid Bosses, Young Gutta Boys, Black Boys Cash Out, and Trust No One. But above all, their rivals were Band Crew, a larger gang that, like RTM, was a confederacy of smaller groups from northwest Detroit, based in a nearby neighborhood along 7 Mile and 8 Mile roads. Some of the gangs that made up the Band Crew had been rivals, but in 2011, they decided to call a peace summit of sorts at a local Burger King and agreed to come together under a single banner. This set up a long-term clash with RTM that predictably led to tragedy after tragedy. T. Grizzly and his brother, Marcellus, grew up in this environment, where day-to-day living is a constant struggle for many. As the older brother, T. Grizzly was born to a teenage mother who frequently got into trouble with law enforcement, sometimes in ways that were blamed on the boy's father, Terry Wallace Sr.
Dang, he looked just like his
In August
dad.
1996, T. Grizzly and Baby Grizzly, aged 2 and 4 at the time, respectively, were detained along with their mother in a police raid at an Indiana residence. Arrested for allegedly possessing cocaine, their mother asked the police at the station to please find some food for her young boys. When they did, she was somehow able to slip her handcuffs and run off, leading to an escape charge. She was sentenced to prison in 1999, when the boys were barely school-aged, and didn't get out until 4 years later. In 2010, when T. Grizzly was a teen attending Cody High School and his younger brother was just 13, their mother would be sentenced to prison for allegedly selling crack cocaine to an undercover officer on several occasions.
Dang, bro. They had it rough.
With their mom behind bars again, the boys attempted to navigate this new reality. Years later, Baby Grizzly's attorney would recall that he was, quote, an aimless teenager, wandering around Warwick and Constance in Detroit with BB guns, surrounded by gang influence, drug dealers, and other dangers many would never understand. Somehow, things would only get worse from there. The boy's uncle, DeMario, was shot and killed outside of a nightclub on Joy Road in early 2011, just a few months after their mother's arrest. In March 2012, a beloved teacher at Cody High School was killed in his own home, and T. Grizzly, then just a junior, was quoted in the local newspaper saying, quote, he told me if I wanted to succeed, I have to stop playing around and be determined and set and accomplish my goals. 4 months after that, the boy...
They really smoked the teacher though, bro?
His father, Terry Wallace Sr., would be gunned down in 2012.
One night SKUDD called me. What up, though? Thought it was my pops calling. Oh, this SKUDD? He couldn't even talk through the tears. He say, nigga, your daddy got shot. What? Police won't give us no information. Fuck, and they say he the only one hit.
By the way, it appears that all 3 of these murder investigations remain open. Finally, in 2015, Baby Grizzly was incarcerated at just 17 years old and wouldn't get out of prison until 2020, when his older brother had become an international rap star. By then, the boy's aunt and manager, Jobina Brown, had been gunned down in what was widely believed to be a failed attempt on T. Grizzly's life. T would describe the shooting and his emotions in the song Satish, his aunt Jobina's middle name.
You make it out these streets, you saw it wasn't me and still shot. What she do to you? We was just winning, now I'm crying at your funeral, but every tear I shed.
While this type of childhood sounds particularly horrid, it wasn't outside the ordinary when compared to the biographies of the young men who were caught up in the RTM indictment. When these defendants went public with details of their upbringings as a last-ditch resort to argue for lesser prison sentences, they told a story of having drug-addicted parents, broken homes, and being witnesses to extreme violence and or familial incarceration from a young age onward.
This really what the community be dealing with, bro. This is not fake. This real life. Some people think this is a game out here. It's not a game.
This brings us to 2015 and the RTM indictment. At the time that his case was handed down by a federal grand jury, T. Grizzly was behind bars facing a sentence of between 18 months and 20 years. He'd eventually get released in October 2016, a month before his life-changing success with the aptly titled single, First Day Out. As a nation of hip-hop fans, We'd hardly gotten to know T as a rapper before he brought up the fact that the feds, as he put it, had at one point tried to loop him into this case. In the song, he denies being a part of RTM, as he has done over and over in interviews and other songs.
Was on me. What you know about related through money? I don't know nothing.
I just used to see him walk to the county.
In a subsequent single, Straight to It, T brings this up again, posing a question in the third person that he's clearly heard before. How'd T get out of that RTM indictment? His response is blunt.
How that nigga T get out that RTM indictment? What? I wasn't on that case. Keep your quiet. When that smoke.
So they trying to say they was trying to make it like he told her something.
But on yet another of one of his more successful songs, a smash single called No Effort, released shortly after First Day Out,
was hard on
T. GRIZZLEY seems to refer to the RTM indictment again, but uses the pronoun we when referring to the group that got indicted.
Was you watching the news? You saw them indictments. Last against we was beefing with, and I can't even think of what cemetery them against that. It'll come to me later.
So what was the RTM indictment? It was a RICO case, targeting 7 alleged members of Related Through Money, with evidence including but not limited to Facebook posts and digital surveillance, as well as, crucially, the word of a person known only as an RTM member A, who had plotted robberies and other violence with the gang, but at some point decided to flip and tell all he knew to the feds. This person's identity is more than likely known to RTM, but his name was never revealed publicly because this case never went to trial. The indictment refers to him as someone who plotted numerous jewelry store robberies, even hosting a meeting at his home to discuss a trip to Ohio for such a heist.
They know who he is. They know who he is.
The 7 defendants included Deontay Matthews, aka CEO Tay, the alleged leader of RTM, as well as Mayor Thedford, Brandon Sims, aka B, Brandon Owens, aka Lil B, Antoine Foster Stockton, aka Twan, Deontay McDonald, and finally Gino Solomon, a young man who prosecutors alleged was responsible for 2 shooting deaths by the time he turned 20.
Oh my god.
CEO Tay's life, up to that point, had closely mirrored T. GRIZZLEY's. A panel of federal judges would later describe him as a smart and ambitious young man who'd graduated high school and attended some college by the time he was picked up on this case. The court even lauded his intellect by noting that he'd used his natural leadership skills to rise to the top of RTM. But he stood accused of a shocking crime. The feds claimed that they could prove he ordered a hit on a member of the band crew, then carried it out himself, pulling up alongside the 16-year-old victim, shooting him enough to kill him several times over, then returning to a waiting Impala and stating simply,
"Yeah, they definitely know who told, bro.
We even."
Cause look, bro, only certain people gonna know that, bro. Saying we even after, bro, they know exactly who said that.
Deontay Matthews vehemently denied this accusation, and his lawyers moved to free him from jail, which is when the feds revealed that they'd tied Deontay to other serious crimes. He'd been caught with firearms on numerous occasions, and soon after catching a prior gun case, once boldly posted online, "You know I got the strap to feds." But he'd also been tied to robberies that fit a particular pattern that typified RMT heists. Specifically, prosecutors said they had proof that Deontay Matthews had scoped out a jewelry pawn shop in Lexington, Kentucky, called the Castle, on July 1st, 2014. But Matthews' movements in the store had alerted the manager, and when the 3 RTM members came in, he was ready. He pulled a gun out, held the men at gunpoint, and called the cops, who brought the 3 would-be robbers up on felony charges. Their names were Dwan Harris, Theo Watts, and Terry Sanchez Wallace Jr., aka T. GRIZZLEY. While they were getting arrested, Deontay Matthews got away. An interesting side note, when T. GRIZZLEY recounts this story, he says it was a customer, not the manager, who in fact held them at gunpoint, and that he could tell by looking in the man's eyes he was searching for an excuse to shoot them. T and the others were charged with the Castle robbery, and Wallace also faced a case back in Michigan for a much larger theft ring based at the university he attended. He'd go on to be sentenced to prison for both. But maybe because his case was processed so quickly, the feds didn't include him or his 2 Lexington co-defendants on the RTM indictment, even though the castle robbery was mentioned in the indictment as a predicate act for the RICO charge. When he was released, T. GRIZZLEY shouted out his 2 co-defendants on First Day Out and expressed surprise that they'd all made it out of that situation, despite the stressors of being in court.
Not a court. Hey, Wando. Hey, Theo, ain't it a blessing? We made it out Kentucky
After all that happened.
Here's a video in 2013, bro. Before the indictments, before the pretrial hearings, the status conferences, and impact statements. Back then, T had not yet attached the word GRIZZLEY to his stage name, but his lyrical talent was still clear. If you pay attention to his shirt, you'll notice it includes the name Band Crew and Rest in Peace tributes to 2 members, Lil D and SKUDD. T is wearing this apparently as an ironic taunt, or to signify that this shirt was stolen from a rival. But the significance of one of those names, SKUDD, weighed heavily in the RTM case. SKUDD was 16-year-old Marcus Cole, a Northwest Detroit native who at one point was a trusted friend of many in RTM. His childhood companions included Gino Solomon, a young man with one of the most shocking and unfortunate pasts of anyone we're covering today. Gino Solomon Jr. first made headlines in 2008, when he was just 12 years old, hanging out at his house with his best friend, Corey Merriweather. They came across a pistol that belonged to Gino's dad and started playing around with the unsecured weapon. It went off, and a bullet struck young Corey in the chest.
Dang.
He was able to run to his house and collapsed in front of his grandfather, then died a short time later.
Dang.
Both Gino and his father were arrested. Gino's tumultuous life never really evened out from there, spending the rest of his childhood either locked up or in juvenile diversion centers. Gino was arrested for setting a classmate's hair on fire in 2010. He hardly saw his dad for the rest of his childhood either, except for one notable time, at age 16, when his dad was charged with federal gun possession for weapons found inside his home.
Bro, this little dude is a menace, bro.
And called Gino as a witness to testify on his behalf.
What? Oh,
on the stand, 16-year-old Gino took full responsibility for the guns being at his dad's house. He explained that when he was just 15, a good friend named SKUDD had dropped off guns at Gino's home and asked him to hide them. Gino obliged and explained that he had hidden them so well that even his father hadn't found them. SKUDD, aka Marcus Cole, never returned to pick up the weapons, because at age 16, he was murdered by a member of RTM after distancing himself from the gang and aligning with the Band Crew instead. Making matters worse, on April 2nd, 2012, SKUDD allegedly shot RTM member Josh Moore in the face during a fight, obviously drawing RTM's ire. Brandon Owens would later write a Facebook message suggesting that he drove by SKUDD 10 days after the shooting of Moore, and would have handled the situation, except that he didn't have a firearm. But RTM would catch up to SKUDD just weeks later, in May 2012, and he would be shot 8 times on a Detroit sidewalk and killed.
Oh, they wanted him out of here.
As mentioned, the feds blamed Deontay Matthews for this, which led to an interesting legal dispute we'll address later. Though Owens said he missed the chance to fire at SKUDD, at a large brawl outside of a nightclub on March 22, 2013, Owens would take aim at a rival and fire, only to have one of his own friends, a man named Franklin Wallace, step in front of the gun at the worst time and take a bullet to the back of the head that was meant for someone else. Owens would later express remorse for what happened and say the incident led him to try to make a change in his life. But on the other hand, after learning that a Cody High School student had witnessed Owens pull the trigger and kill Franklin, several RTM members showed up at the school in full force, standing outside a classroom screaming, "RTM for life," as Owens waved a pistol in a clear attempt to intimidate this teenager.
In the school?
Both the homicides of Marcus Cole and Franklin Wallace occurred when Gino was in juvenile detention. And when he testified for his father in May 2013, He explained that killing his friend by accident had deeply affected him. Quote, "I knew what guns could do, and I wasn't playful with guns no more." Gino's testimony failed.
Dang, he been locked up since he was 12, so he still got that third grade education
to convince jurors, who convicted his dad. But Gino was released just a few weeks after his dad's trial. In June 2013, he was free and out in Detroit with little to no supervision. On June 5th, he and RTM members Deontay McDonald and Darren Hartley went out on a wild crime spree, carjacking one man for a Chevy Impala, then using the car to search for more victims. They found a woman and demanded her Ford Taurus, got behind the wheel of the Taurus, attempted to make a getaway, crashed, and totaled the Taurus, then ran back to the originally carjacked Impala and drove off once again. The whole time, Gino was armed with a .22 caliber firearm. Next, the three teens arrived at the home of 73-year-old Cleveland Hall, a longtime Detroit resident who went by Kenny. They tried to rob him, but Hall had been around the block, and he was packing his own .38 caliber pistol. In the struggle that ensued between Gino and Hall, one of their guns discharged, and Hall was killed. Still not yet an adult, Gino was now responsible for 2 shooting deaths.
Oh my god. Yeah, he definitely not getting out this time.
All of this gave the U.S. Department of Justice 3 murders and a whole lot of robberies to throw at RTM. And not one of the 7 defendants opted to take his case to trial. Instead, they'd each go before a judge to plead guilty and receive decades in prison.
Dang.
Deontay tried to take back his guilty plea after learning that it included a clause that he could be held legally responsible for killing SKUDD, a murder he still maintains he didn't do. Just last year, Deontay resumed his efforts to get out of prison.
But don't that mean somebody got to get the blame for it if he's saying he ain't do it?
Writing that he had become certified in plumbing, electricity, masonry, carpentry, and roofing, and had taken victim impact classes. Quote, "Prior to being imprisoned, I was young, naive, and misled by my perception of life. My bad choices, which I regret, will never be repeated. Daily, I've been working on myself. As of this recording, Deontay is scheduled to get out in 2035.
I ain't gonna lie, bro. That's definitely not bad. Looking at what he was up against, bro. That's only not even 10 more years. Like 9 more years now.
As for T. Grizzly, the newfound fame and fortune paved the way for his little brother, who finally found himself a free man for the first time in his adult life in late 2020. With T. Grizzly's assistance, Baby Grizzly broke his way into the rap world and quickly signed a $300,000 deal with T's label, 300 Entertainment. His future finally looked bright, but the success would be short-lived. In December 2020, roughly 5 weeks after his release from prison, Baby Grizzly and 2 others were pulled over in the backseat of a white Maserati in Royal Oak, Michigan, for a minor traffic infraction. When police began questioning the driver, Anthony Miranda, about whether he'd been drinking due to a red Solo cup being in a cup holder, Baby Grizzly and another passenger stepped up and admitted to sipping whiskey in the back seat. The cops pulled everyone out of the car to search it and found 4 guns, enough to charge both Baby Grizzly and passenger Nolan Dasgupta Francis.
Oh, wait, hold on. No. Bro, this a whole crazy case within itself. This is too. Oh my goodness. Say goodbye.
Enough to charge both Baby Grizzly and passenger Nolan Dasgupta Francis, aka Nolo. Alone in the back seat with his driver, Baby Grizzly explained that he'd be going to prison for years for the guns, while Anthony Miranda would only do a few months because of his clean record, and that if he took the heat, that he'd be paid $20,000 for his troubles.
That guy shit. Hey, you gonna take the case for us? You gonna get 5 years.
You?
Yeah.
Is that clear?
What do you wanna do? I want you to tell them they yours.
He ain't trying to take that jump for real. He like, I don't even know him for real like that.
No, like,
He taking it?
what happened after that?
Bro, I ain't gonna lie. You gonna get a case, but you ain't gonna get 5 years, bro. We went to the joint already, so we gonna get 5 years. You fuck around and get a couple months. This your first case, ain't it?
Oh, damn.
20,000. Gotcha. 20 years, bro.
Talking about 20 bands.
No other option, or we go to jail.
Baby Grizzly then called someone he referred to on the phone as T, who police obviously say was T Grizzly. And in this video, their voices do sound similar.
You got your phone?
Yeah.
Call T, bro. Bro, we in the back of the police car right now, bro. They found everything in that bitch.
What?
They pulled us out the car, bro, for nothing.
What, bro? Bro, the only thing that can happen right now, bro, is one of two things, bro. Somebody can say that was theirs, bro, or and they let the other two go, or nigga, I don't know. Because they gonna hit them PO up about that if you go in, bro.
I was in here just talking to Crave about that shit. Cause it was just me, Nolo, and Craig. You know me and Nolo on parole and shit.
Bro, oh my gosh, bro. Why I don't keep somebody around that could get a legal gun?
Yeah, bro. Somebody has to say that was theirs, or they gonna let the other two go. That's the only
He
thing
ain't taking the
that can
heat
happen,
for them guns?
And we'll take care of the rest.
Of course, all of this backfired, as the entire conversation was videotaped by police, and federal prosecutors would later use the alleged bribery attempt to successfully argue for a federal prison sentence against Baby Grizzly. It was a frustrating moment for the Wallace family, but a reprieve would come when T and Baby Grizzly's mom was released from prison the same month of Baby Grizzly's arrest. Despite this significant setback, there's one silver lining. Baby Grizzly is set to get out of prison around Christmas of this year.
Oh, okay.
And when he does, he'll be coming home to family members who have the financial means and the power to help him get back on his feet in a way that never would have been possible.
Dang, he only did a year. He got off good.
Before First Day Out hit YouTube and broke the internet. More to the point, in 2021, Terry Wallace III was born, the son of T Grizzly. This young child may never have to endure the pain and struggles that his family endured for generations, in the SKUDD-ZONE and along Joy Road, in an environment that so many others had succumbed to.
Man, yeah though, man. That was that related through money inside Detroit SKUDD-ZONE, man. Little tour T Grizzly Hub. If y'all enjoy that, make sure y'all comment, like, subscribe, the notification bell. And let me know what y'all want to see next, man. It's Butter. I'm going to catch y'all next one. I'm out this show.
Chains in these watches, boy, we real ice. Hands out the window, bam, 10 in a